Good morning, good afternoon, happy Monday. You've picked up 11.4 notes. You do need your textbook today, as there will be an assignment due at the end of class. It is not homework, it is turned in at the end of class. You will also need a highlighter. We've got some pictures today, and highlighters are very helpful to see what we're talking about in these pictures. Some things to remember: you have a survey topic due tomorrow. This needs to be a how many question. Okay, so how many? The question needs to have a number response. So if you ask, what is your favorite fast food restaurant? And everyone says Chick-fil-A because that's the number one, that's the answer. That's not a numeric response. You can't find the average of that. You can't find the median of that. It needs to be a number response. So you're going to go to Google Classroom and you'll open a document. You'll type in your how many question, and you also need to type in what two groups you are asking. So two different groups. If you already did submit on Google Classroom, I left a comment. Not all of them. Maybe they weren't necessarily, they could have been approved, but not quite all of it. Some people were missing which two groups you're going to be surveying. And then some people, wrote one word. I got to know you can't write animals. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. So it needs to be a full sentence so I know what you're, surveying. And then what two groups you are surveying. If it was all good, I left a thumbs up just so you knew that you were good to go with that topic. The survey is minus 10 points off for every day it is not approved starting tomorrow. So if you want to submit throughout the day today, I'll be checking probably at noon and then probably after school. And I'll leave a thumbs up comment if it is good, and I will leave a word comment if it is not good. And then the last thing, at least on this slide, is that you have a quiz and a test this week over 11.1, 2, and 4. You've learned 11.1. We're learning 11.4 today. 11.2 we will do tomorrow. And actually the last thing is, if you did not turn in 11.1 practice, it is due tomorrow. Turn it into the bin if you already have it done. But other than that, we'll go ahead and get started on 11.4. 11.4 is all about three-dimensional figures because the rest of the chapter is about volume. Volume is how much can fit inside of a shape, and we're talking about three-dimensional shapes. Some of these words, hopefully a lot of these words you have heard of before. Today we're just classifying and just talking about some vocabulary here and there. So let's go ahead and get started. A three-dimensional figure, or a solid is what we call it, is bounded by a flat or curved surface that encloses a single region of space. It is a three-dimensional shape that you could fit, items inside of. Water, rice, things like that. Your first blank is a polyhedron. It is a solid that is bounded by polygons called faces. And that is your second blank. Here's what you need to know, and I would note. A polyhedron is made up of polygons. Remember what a polygon is, and an easy way to remember is, everyone knows a triangle is a polygon, but is a circle a polygon? No, it is not, because a polygon is closed, which a circle is too, but it is made up of segments, so has no curves. So a polyhedron is made up of polygons. It also has no curves. It's made up of completely straight lines. Okay, so triangles, rectangles, squares, trapezoids, and things of that nature. An edge of a polyhedron is a line segment formed by the intersection of two faces. So the edge I have highlighted, okay, if you want to be highlighting things, there are edges inside of this figure. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then those dotted lines are also edges. They're just behind the shape. 10, 11, 12 edges. The face of a polygon, we'll change colors. The face of the polygon are the two-dimensional, shapes. So you got a rectangle here, that's a face. You got a rectangle over here, that's a face. You got a trapezoid up here, that is a face. Okay? And then the last, a vertex of a polyhedron is a point where 3 or more edges meet. The plural of polyhedron is polyhedra. And I'll explain that. But the vertex is where corners are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertices here. When you don't say polyhedrons, you say polyhedra. I guess you can say polyhedrons as well. I think that's the easier way to do it, just polyhedrons. So there are 2 types of solids. They're called polyhedra and non-polyhedra, which you have blanks. You can go ahead and fill in polyhedra and not polyhedra. Again, you can call them polyhedron or not polyhedron. Either way, you will have questions on your quiz on Wednesday and your test that'll say, is this a polyhedron? So make sure you're seeing the difference between the two when I show you. Okay, so you got polyhedra or polyhedron and then non-polyhedron on the right. You can kind of see on your picture already. Polyhedra, you got prisms and pyramids. They're made up of completely straight lines. Straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. You get it. Straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. Okay? Non-polyhedra have curved edges. It's easy to notice. Okay? A cylinder has a circle. A cone has a circle. A sphere literally is a circle. So make sure you know the difference because it will be required on your quiz and test. Some other things to know when you're going to highlight. To name a prism or a pyramid, go ahead and highlight this. To name a prism or a pyramid, you use the shape of the base. So to name a prism or a pyramid, you use the shape of a base. So this prism, we would call it a prism, but to specify what kind of prism, you would look at the base. Now the base isn't necessarily always on the bottom. You can underline this or highlight it in a different color. I'm going to highlight it in a different color and underline it because this is the most important part. The 2 bases of a prism are congruent and parallel. So you can just say the 2 bases of a prism are congruent and parallel. So a prism has 2 congruent and parallel bases. I would note that so that you know the difference between a prism and a pyramid. Prism has 2 congruent and parallel bases. So this first prism is a special type of prism. This one you can obviously see. This looks like a box, right? A moving box, a tissue box, literally any box in the world. So the base, you could call the bases the top and the bottom if you want. They're both rectangles. You could call it the sides because they're also congruent and parallel. They're rectangles. You can call it the front of the box as well as the back of the box because they're also congruent and parallel. But this, any way you look at it, any base that you highlight, and you can go ahead and highlight, let's say the sides are the easiest to see. Go ahead and highlight the sides. They are congruent and parallel, and they are rectangles. So this is a rectangular prism. Rectangular prism. All right, and then the bottom is a pyramid, right? It's a special type of pyramid. A pyramid only has 1 base. Go ahead and write that it's the 1 base, and it is across from the vertex. So the base is across from the vertex. Go ahead and highlight this base. And it is across from that top vertex. So the base, the shape of the base is a rectangle, so this is a rectangular pyramid. Okay, so if it is a polyhedra, you want to decide, does it have 2 congruent bases, congruent and parallel bases? If so, you can always highlight the bases. Whatever shape that base is the what kind of prism it is. And then the same thing with a pyramid. Whatever the shape of the base is, that's what kind of pyramid it is. The most common mistake with pyramids is that people are like, oh, it's a triangle. But all pyramids look triangular in sort, but it matters what the base is, not what the sides are. Okay, so the base of a pyramid is a polygon. Okay, and then you would name the base of the polygon, the base of the pyramid, as the name of the pyramid. Okay, so let's turn to the next page and practice. So, I guess it just shows you more examples. I'm sorry, I'm in a rush. I'm trying to get home, so switch with my husband so that he can go to work, and so sorry. But this is a pentagonal prism. If you look, the two congruent and parallel bases, here's a pentagon as well. They are congruent and parallel from each other. The sides were squares or rectangles, but they are not the bases because they are not congruent and parallel. Remember, parallel means they will never intersect. Congruent means they're the same, length and width and all the jazz. The second triangular pyramid, if you look at the base is a triangle. That's what makes it a triangular pyramid, whereas the picture that you were given was a rectangular pyramid because the base was a rectangle. So, tell whether each solid is a polyhedron if it is named the polyhedron. So, in order for it to have a polyhedron, it needs to have no curves. None. Straight lines. So, letter A, does it have any curves? Obviously, no. We're going to go ahead and decide if it is a prism or a pyramid. Does it have two bases or a single base? It has two bases, which makes it a prism. Go ahead and highlight what the bases are. Again, this one looks like a box, so everyone can kind of tell what kind of prism it is. You could highlight the top and the bottom as the bases. You could highlight the sides as the bases. I think for me, the easiest thing to highlight would be the front and the back. But any way you look at it, this is rectangular, and it's a prism because there are two bases. Okay, so rectangular prism. Sorry, we forgot the yes. Tell whether it's a polyhedron. Yes, it's a polyhedron. It is a rectangular prism. Okay, letter B, you want to look for two bases or a single base. Now this one, is it a polyhedron? Does it have any curves? It doesn't have any curves, so yes, it's a polyhedron. Is it a prism or a pyramid? It only has a single base. And its shape, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, which makes it a hexagon. We call it hexagonal. And then there's a single base, which makes it a pyramid. The last, is it a polyhedron? No, not a polyhedron. It's got a curved edge. It doesn't say to explain, we can just say no. But it's got a curved edge. It is a cone, which we'll talk about later, but it is not a polyhedron. The next two, are they a polyhedron? So the first one, are there any curved edges? There are no curved edges, they're all straight, so this is a polyhedron. And then number two is a donut or an inner tube, however you want to look at it. It's literally only a curved edge, so it is not a polyhedron. All right, and then the last thing we talk about is talking about cross sections. So imagine a plane. Actually, don't imagine a plane. That's what the book says. Go ahead and imagine like a piece of paper slicing through a solid. The intersection of the plane and the solid is called a cross section. So let's see the example with a cube. So you've got a piece of paper, which is like this peachy color, and then a cube, and where they intersect, they shade in this like purple color. Your textbook will shade it, but your quiz and test would be shaded in gray as normal. But the shape of that would be a square. But if you moved the piece of paper diagonally like this, the cross section would be a rectangle. And if you moved it again, the cross section could be, it's very, very small and very slight, here, it would be a triangle. Okay, so all I'm asking you to do in this section is name the shape, describe the shape formed by the intersection of the plane and the solid. So you're looking at the shaded area, like this, and telling me what shape it is. So this first one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, which makes it a hexagon. So just go ahead and write in a hexagon. Letter B, your shaded region, it's got, 1, 2, 3 sides, which makes it a triangle. Letter C, the shaded region, I know it's getting harder to see on your paper. And actually, if you want to take a second and highlight where the shaded regions are, that might be helpful. I just looked at B and it doesn't look like anything shaded, but it is. And C is hard to see as well on your paper. Just go ahead and highlight the shaded portions. All right, the letter C, this shaded region, what shape is it? It is a rectangle. Letter D, the shaded region, it is a circle. Letter E, so the reason it's a circle, even though it kind of looks like an oval, but this is a cone, which is a circular base, which means all the way up it's going to be a circle. The same thing here with a sphere. A sphere is a three-dimensional circle, so the cross-section is still a circle. And then F, you do need to be specific. This has 4 sides, and when you have one set of parallel sides, this is called a trapezoid. Okay, you've got an assignment due at the end of the class hour. But before I'll show it to you, I'm just going to remind you the difference between a prism and a pyramid. A prism has 2 bases. So the most common thing that students, mistake is the difference between a triangular prism and a pyramid. A prism has 2 bases, and so here the bases would be the 2 triangles. So you got one triangle in red, and then your second triangle. They're congruent and parallel. This would not have been rectangular as a base because none of them are parallel. This is a rectangle, and there's nothing parallel to it. Whereas a pyramid has 1 base, and the base is across from the top vertex. So here's my vertex, the base will be across from it, and its shape is a triangle. But look at the difference between a prism and a pyramid. Okay, go ahead and take out a sheet of paper. Here is the assignment. You must draw the diagrams. Diagrams first.